Hey guys, what is going on? I figured we'd take a break from coronavirus news. I had something else prepared about coronavirus, but like the last 2 out of my 3 videos, I'm talking about it, and I just don't want to talk about it any more than I have to. I think those 2 videos spoke a lot about what I feel about it, if not everything. There are other aspects I want to go into, but it's like I don't want to beat a dead horse. And again, that's what everyone else is talking about. That's why I stopped talking about it for such a long time. So we're going to bring it back to Virginia, my lovely state of Virginia that is rapidly becoming a hellhole because of Democratic policies. Rapidly in the fact they've accelerated it since they took control of all aspects of the government earlier this year. But this has been going on for quite a long time. I started noticing changes when I was a kid here about how certain things got more difficult to do, how the people started changing, their values started changing, the things that they hold important or they disdain or they like. It all started shifting slowly, and then when I was young, I didn't really understand at the time, like, okay, they're just new people, big deal. I moved here, they're moving here, they're changing. Things change. I don't expect Virginia to always stay the way it was in the 90s. No place is exactly the same as it was in the 90s. Just like in the 90s, it wasn't exactly the same as the 70s. That's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about different fashion statements or different music or different shoes, sports, whatever. We're talking about values, what you deem to be good or moral, or what you consider to be immoral or evil, and how lots of things have been flipped on their heads because of Democratic policies. The type of people they've been bringing into Virginia. Almost every single person I meet has been here less time than me. I wasn't even born here. I can't imagine for how it must feel for people who lived here since the 60s, 70s, 80s, and they've seen it's just the changes any more drastic. So we're going to go into this article of how the radical left is fundamentally transforming Virginia. This state offers a small glimpse into the left's radical and dangerous vision for America. The thing is, what is happening to the U.S. is happening on a micro scale in Virginia, in regards to demographics, in regards to Democrats controlling every single aspect of the government, ramming through radical left legislature. I'm not talking about just allowing gays to be married. No, that's perfectly fine. The vast majority of Americans accept that. This is radical left. Something that even Obama would not have agreed with just 10 years ago. Something that no past Democratic president would propose, and that's why they didn't propose them. These policies make Carter and Clinton look like moderates. And the Democrats today don't like any Democrats. A lot of them don't like Obama. They like the image of him. They like that he was cool and collected and he was polite, unlike Trump. But they would never accept Bill Clinton. They would never accept Carter. Never. Ever. They're too moderate now. Let's go on to what would America be like today if Hillary Clinton won the 2016 presidential election? I can't fucking imagine. Things have gotten better under Trump. That's all going down the tubes right now because of all the policies about the coronavirus, but that's a separate issue. Gerald Fleury wrote in his article, Saving America from the Radical Left Temporarily, they believe they are above the law. He continued, it is no exaggeration to say that such contempt for the nation's founding principles is a threat to the Republic. Does that sound extreme? Yeah. To Democrats, when you go up to them and say, your policies are a direct threat to our values that founded this nation that we have had for hundreds and hundreds of years, they're just like, are you some Alex Jones tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? They are so clueless to the actual consequences of the policies they're proposing. And when something bad happens, like take the Iraq War, for example, that is completely George Bush's fault and completely the Republicans' fault. They are not to blame for they're not blameless in this. That is totally their error in judgment. But you know who also went along with them? The Democrats. And guess what Democrats now espouse? They espouse that it was all George Bush Republicans. Democrats didn't want anything to do with it. It didn't support him at all. And George Bush just rammed it through before anyone could say anything. And it's Republicans that are pro-war, not the Democrats. So they think they're completely blameless in this. It's like, no. If you look up records, for Joe Biden, for example, he supported the Iraq War. Now, Democrats who fervently believe that the Iraq War was bad, which it was a mistake, which it was, they have no problem with the cognitive dissonance of voting for Biden, who has supported every single goddamn fucking war, which is not a war because we never declared war, but you know what I mean. Every single war we have been in, he has supported. And then they tout themselves up saying, we're anti-war, we care about human lives. And then they go vote for Biden. Like, just... We're getting back to above the law. every single thing that Democrats are trying to push onto ordinary Americans, they don't want to follow themselves. For example, of free speech. They want to limit free speech for anyone they disagree with, whether it's online or in person. They want you fired from your work, harassed, your livelihood lost, whatever, just because you simply disagree with them. Now, they will never support censoring themselves because someone doesn't agree with their opinion or they think their opinions hate speech. So as soon as the gun they are shooting is turned on them, then suddenly they have a problem with it, and suddenly free speech is really important to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous 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 to our democracy.
You know, they constantly claim they want to defend democracy only when they're under attack. Quote unquote attack means someone is just saying an opinion they don't like. They constantly say they want to defend democracy against Trump, yet they are the ones consistently attacking the First Amendment when it comes to their political opponents. So they don't want the hate laws or the free speech laws to apply to them. No, they want to apply to those evil right-wingers. They don't want attack on freedom of religion to be on them. They want to be on those evil, radical, Catholic, Christian right-wingers. They don't want to give up their armed security that protects them 24/7. They want ordinary Americans to give up their guns and have no protection. You can go case by case basis throughout the entire Bill of Rights and see how every single thing they are attacking, which they are attacking the entire Bill of Rights at this point. They have been for quite some time. Actually, come to think of it, they held out on the Third Amendment just for the longest time because the Third Amendment says you can't have any soldiers in people's houses. But now they just want soldiers to be on the street, so basically in your house, and then to break in your house to break up quarantine rules. If you have 11 family members over, they want soldiers to be able to break into your house without a warrant and separate them on terms of stopping coronavirus. That's not exaggeration. That's not. All of these things are easily verifiable in 5 seconds if people would bother to look it up, but they don't. Since CNN and MSNBC never tells them this, they don't care. Actually, in regards to the soldier thing, surprisingly amount of Democrats do support having soldiers out on the streets to enforce social distancing. Again, you think it's exaggeration? Look it up. Look at the polls. They more than half. It's not overwhelming. It's not more than 80%, but it's between 50 and 75%. So it's in a good chunk of majority of them support having soldiers in the streets to enforce quarantine. And then when someone's breaking quarantine, they think they should invade that house at any point in time to break it up, disregarding the fact that putting more soldiers into that house increases the number of people, therefore increasing the supposed risk of coronavirus apparently is so bad. But that's beside the point, because that's not supposed to make sense. None of this is supposed to make any sense. But they would absolutely have a tizzy if soldiers broke into their house with guns and forced them to stop doing something they want to do. No, they want to do it to those evil right-wingers, but not to them. Let's go back to the article. We went on a tangent there with that. Most of the article, it's not exactly... I'm not going to read the whole entire thing, because again, we're going to be here like 45 minutes, and I don't have time for that. Basically, it's going on to how Virginia was a swing state for quite some time, and just recently, however, in 2008, the state's long history of promoting conservative values ended. Voters supported the most radically left presidential candidate in American history, Senator Barack Obama. That continued in 2016, when Hillary Clinton received the majority of Virginia votes. Yet that is nothing compared to the past few months. On November 5th, 2019, for the first time since 1994, Democrats took control of both Virginia's House of Representatives and the Senate. Since then, a number of far-left politicians have been proposing and passing some of the most radical laws in the U.S. Virginia's transformation exposes Democrats' undemocratic agenda for America. Now, how many laws have they passed since January, whenever they went into session? You think 100, 200, maybe 500? They've tried over 1,200 laws. They've passed that passed, not just introduced. They introduced 3,900. They passed 1,200. That is dozens and dozens of bills every single day. How much do you want to bet that none of them has read all of those bills entirely. You don't have enough time in the day. If you woke up and the first thing you did was read for 16 hours and go back to bed for 8 hours and did it again and again, you still will not have enough time to pass all these bills. They are cramming through these radically left bills that we don't know exactly what's in all of them because no one is reading them. The parts we are reading are extremely disturbing on how far left and destructive they are. So who knows what else is in there. If you, like, there's two pieces of paper and you happen to snatch one of them and read one of them, it's pretty fucking bad. You assume the other one is just as bad, if not bad, if not worse. One way Democrats are digging in is through gerrymandering. The state's increasing population will make redistricting necessary in 2021. Redrawing the map could have serious political consequences and even change the outcome of state elections. This is how gerrymandering works. Suppose a region contains large numbers of people who tend to vote Republican. Dividing the region up and making each chunk a smaller part of neighboring Democratic regions could reduce Republican votes. The more such regions are broken up, the less likely it becomes for a Republican to be elected to the legislature. Now, to be fair, Republicans do this too. Both political parties are guilty of this, and each side acts like they don't do it, and the other side's the only one that does it. Again, it's just political pandering. They just play to the base. They just play up their talking points. They don't actually care about any of these issues. All they care about is grabbing power. Power, 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 power.
It's powerful, yeah! Powdered sugar!
It doesn't matter if they have to lie or have complete double standards or be totally exposed, easily exposed within 5 minutes of having double standards or lying. They don't care. When you point out their blatant hypocrisy, they just sit there. Their supporters just sit there. Whenever I talk with Democrats online and I expose a double standard of what they're arguing for, either they don't respond or they laugh, react, and they just walk away and they don't respond. They just don't care. They don't care. They have no principles. Now it goes on to the specific bills that they're passing, all of these hundreds and hundreds of bills that they're passing in a matter of days. Northam strongly backs the Equal Rights Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. This bill has been the flagship legislation of Democrats' agenda for years and the major reason why they overjoyed to gain control of the state. This bill would radically alter America's moral standards, enshrining abortion within the Constitution as a human right. Murder of fetuses is now a human right. What kind of fucked up society has those morals and values as to determine that is a human right? In ending sex separation in bathrooms, locker rooms, jails, and hospitals. Isn't this really disturbing? Isn't anyone just like, maybe I favor abortion within like an early trimester, early part of the pregnancy. I still don't like it, but let's just compromise and let's do that. And you have to have a really good reason. Like, it has to be like the mother's life is endangered or rape or incest or something like that. But why are you ending sex separation in bathrooms and locker rooms and jails and hospitals? Like, that's just so bizarre. There's no reason for any of that. It's all to placate the alphabet people who say sex separation is discriminatory to my sex or gender, whatever bullshit thing they come up with. You hear countless stories of schools ending genders in bathrooms and allowing anyone to go to any bathroom anytime they want, depending on what gender they agree with, which for some people on this weird fucking bizarre spectrum, they could change from minute to minute, from hour to hour, so they can literally go wherever they want at any point in time. And you hear all these stories about these biological males sexually harassing all these females in bathrooms because they're legally just to walk right in there and no one can stop them. And the Democrats that support that, the only reason why they support that is because it's not happening to them or their daughter. The minute it happens to them or their daughter, then they suddenly 180 and realize how bad that policy is, and then they're against it. But these brain-dead Democrats don't understand the consequences of the policies they're proposing until it hits them personally. They are not able to digest information logically and say, you know what, even though that hasn't happened to me or someone I know personally, that's really not a good idea. That's really uncomfortable. That's really, really bad for society to accept that and to put that on our children and our women, put them at risk like that. So, you know what, even though that doesn't happen to me or I'm not a woman, I'm not going to agree with that. But no, they can't do that. That requires like 2 brain molecules. Apparently they only have 1. Another reason Governor Northam is well recognized among Democrats is his strong pro-abortion stance. Oh, that's what they call it. That's interesting. It's really not pro-abortion. It goes beyond that. We'll read about it. Of course, everyone who's listening to this knows what I'm talking about. He gained national fame in January 2019 for endorsing Democratic delegate Kathy Tran's bill, which proposed removing all restrictions on third trimester abortions, essentially legalizing infanticide. In this quote, "If the mother is in labor, I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant will be kept comfortable. And then a discussion will ensue between the physicians and the mother. This implied that an infant already born and breathing could be killed if the mother so desired." Now, he said he didn't mean that when he said it, but he has never offered an alternative of what he meant. Nor, I don't know how you can read that and say he's not advocating infanticide. The infant would be delivered. Hence, it would be born. It is alive outside the mother. That's what delivered means, right? Like, why are we mincing words and acting like we don't understand English? And then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and mother as to what to do with the baby. I don't know how you can interpret that any different than what I just said and what the vast majority of people who heard this. There were longtime Democrats who've been Democrats for decades and decades and decades who I know who heard that and they're like, nope, I can't do it. I'm not voting for him. That's ridiculous. That is murder. If his stance is so radically left that he's turning off Democratic voters who have been like lifetime Democrats for decades, literally they have voted for no one else in their entire life except for Democrats, and it's turning them off, then can't you see how objectively his policies are so radically left? But since so many Democrats think just like he does, and they just operate the sheeple mentality, and they just say whatever the media tells them, blah, 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 and they don't even think. They think that's normal because the vast majority of them inside their bubble, their echo chamber, think that way. But historically, that is so far to the left that we couldn't even conceive that was an option to be politically viable. Insane people said that was never a political opinion, and now it's like the mainstream Democratic opinion on abortion. The bill would repeal all protections against late-term abortion, which until recently was illegal throughout America. There would be no requirement to perform an ultrasound for an abortion. Minors would have a legal right to access abortion services without notifying anyone, even their parents. Abortion would be protected under state law. So this thing that was illegal throughout all 50 states is now totally accessible in Virginia. That is how radically we have jumped. It's not something that even was available in other Democratic states. It's not like it's been available in New York and California since like the 90s, and now we're just adopting it. No, like literally no one did this 20 years ago. And now it's becoming the mainstream Democratic position. We're jumping around, I know, but I have limited time, unfortunately. I'm just hitting the highlights of this article. This is something I mentioned before. Marriage and family matters are not the only aspects of Virginia's lives that Democrats want to control. In fact, they want to control basically everything. Everyone knows that. They just think they can do it better. They're not denying it. Vague laws on the subject of online harassment and hate speech also has observers worried. House Bill 1627 sets out felony charges for anyone threatening to kill or do bodily harm to the governor, his family, a school teacher, or a healthcare worker. Now, that's pretty normal. Threatening to kill or do bodily harm to someone is a crime that is not protected under free speech or the First Amendment. So basically, everyone and their mom agrees that that's a crime. However, it does include a vague section about harassment. It outlines penalties against any person who, with the intent to coerce, intimidate, or harass any person, shall use a computer or computer network to communicate obscene, vulgar, profane, lewd, lascivious, I don't know what the fuck that means, or indecent language. There's no definitions given anywhere on this bill for coercion, harassment, or intimidation. Since no definitions of what constitutes these offenses are given, this vague law comes dangerously close to violating First Amendment rights. Actually, I'll go further and say it does directly break your First Amendment rights. Taken to the extreme, when has Democrats not done that? When have they not taken to the extreme? They've taken every single policy they've ever liked and just amped it up to 11. Taken to an extreme, anyone who expresses an opinion in disagreement with the state government could be subject to a prosecution for a misdemeanor or a felony. So, Northam, I guess, must have watched my videos to see how I'm making fun of him and harassing him, which I perfectly admit I'm harassing them. I have the right to harass my officials online. That's protected under free speech because they have taken everything from me and now they're rubbing it in my face saying, we're destroying your livelihood, we're destroying everything you hold dear, ha ha ha. And I can't do anything about it. The only thing I can do is make fun of them. There's a reason why when tyrants come into power, the first people they get rid of are the comedians and the clowns and the court jesters and the people on TV that make fun of them, whatever, they are the first person to go because it gets under their skin so fucking much that they can do anything they want politically, and yet there's these people who make fun of them and harass them online, and it just irritates the fuck out of them. The problem is with people having such thin skin, especially Democrats, since they have no definitions of what profane or harassment and intimidation mean, then you can say anything you want, and they can say, oh, that's harassment, boom, give them a misdemeanor, boom, give them a felony. And you can't prove them wrong because there's no legal definition. And everyone has a different interpretation of what vulgar or obscene or harassment or intimidation is. I've simply said, I don't agree. I've been talking to Democrats, and I simply say, I don't agree with that policy, and I get slammed for harassing and intimidating and being extremist. Just for saying, I don't agree with that policy. That's what they want to do with this legislation. They want to make any criticism of their ridiculous, radically left, destructive policies illegal. Because all they're going to say is saying that's harassment. Nope, can't say that. Boom. Remove that comment, get him off that network, find out where he works, move him from his job, make him lose his home because he said something we don't agree with. Oh, and slap a misdemeanor or felony on him too, while we're at it. That's what they want to do. There is no way that you can oppose their point of view on a level playing field like people have been doing for centuries and just say, hey, I have opinion A, hey, I have opinion B. Let's talk it out and let's make some points, make some arguments, get some stats, let's get this going, let's try to figure it out. No, they don't want that because they can't defend their own policies. They know their policies are destructive. They know their policies have double standards. They know the policies objectively make things worse for their enemies. They don't care. They just want power and to hurt anyone that stands in their way. They don't want to take the time to develop arguments to defend their policies because you can't defend the policies they are proposing. You cannot logically defend infanticide or taking away people's guns or taking away people's free speech or not letting them go to church or putting soldiers in their home or stealing the private information, breaking the freedom of privacy. You can't defend these. So they just say, oh, well, anyone who attacks us, we're just going to get rid of their opinion. Not only is the government expanding, it is also removing the right of its citizens to defend themselves. Gun control has been a rallying cry for the far left, especially in the light of increasing mass shootings. The right to bear arms, protected under the Second Amendment, is under attack. Northam signed a law on April 10th that removed the right of those owning arms to receive due process at the hands of the law. Their arms could be seized from their home at any given time, providing only one vague requirement is rent. Why can I not talk? That only one vague requirement is met. The citizen is deemed a threat by state authorities. Again, that is a very vague definition. What is a threat by state authorities? Oh, you have a gun and you disagree with our policies? You say you're going to stand up for yourself? Nope, that's a threat. Nope, take away his guns. That is completely unconstitutional. I don't know how much I need to go into detail about each of these things about, is Northam attacking the First Amendment? Is he attacking the Second Amendment? I don't have time to go into a 45-minute deep dive into each claim. Otherwise, we've been here for 5 hours. I think my work on YouTube speaks for itself as to the background of Northam's fuckery. And on a similar note, it's really disturbing when people either don't realize exactly what rights they have or how exactly to interpret the English language. But it's really disturbing when something you say that just 20 years ago would have been non-controversial and totally understood by the vast majority of Americans, such as limiting free speech online or in print or in person, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's limiting your criticism of the government is against the First Amendment. That was widely understood, and that's why infringements on the First Amendment didn't happen that much back then, and now it's increasingly frequent. 20 years ago, that would have been non-controversial, but now people are like, wait a minute, just because Facebook bans you and deletes your post and people go after your job and your family if you say something they don't like because they criticize Democrats or some government program or something, that's not attacking your free speech. You totally have free speech. You're just not immune from consequences, and the consequences are completely devastating in every way, shape, or form. And people aren't hearing your message whenever any platform bans you and deletes your comment. I was saying to myself, I'm like, how do you not realize that is an attack on free speech? And these are policies that Democrats are proposing. They're like, Democrats aren't proposing that people go after your job if you say something they don't like online. Yes, but they are clearly encouraging it because it's Democrats who do this every single goddamn time. And it's Democrats who are pushing legislation such as what I just mentioned, that criticizing government officials online is a crime, and attacking people's right to bear arms when putting all these restrictions on how you can buy guns, making it more difficult to buy guns. The red flag laws I just mentioned, that you just are deemed a danger to the government or something, and that the government has the ability to take away your rights without even a court date or nothing, so that violates the 4th Amendment. And I believe the 6th Amendment is the right to speedy trial. Let me look that up quick because I don't want to be taken out of context here. No, I cannot be taken out of context. Which one is the speedy and free trial? 6th Amendment, the accused should enjoy a right to a speedy and public trial. So now with these red flag laws, it breaks both the 2nd and 6th Amendment in the fact that they are able to take away your guns by just saying something. Do you have to offer proof? No. No proof is necessary because you are in imminent danger. So therefore, they don't have to show proof. This is the perfect example of why red flags are unconstitutional with the Duncan Lump case, which I've talked about extensively. There is no evidence to show he did anything illegal or anything dangerous whatsoever, but yet still, they sent cops after him at 3 a.m. to shoot him up and steal his guns. There was no trial. They're not like, hey, you're accused of doing XYZ, come to this trial, and then they come to the speedy and public trial, and he's found guilty of something, and then they take away their guns. Obviously, I support such thing as, like, if you're a violent felon, yeah, you shouldn't have guns. Is that breaking the 2nd Amendment? No, because you broke someone else's rights in order to get to that situation in the first place. But we're getting off topic and we're on tangents. I just love tangents, don't I? I'm so sorry for all these tangents. But all of these things are interconnected. All these issues are interconnected. It's impossible to talk about them just one-off, just the one thing. Because it affects so many other things that context is very important. So then it goes on to the Electoral College, which again I already talked about, so I'm not going to go into. No, actually it's different, sorry. Scrap that. This is different than gerrymandering. It's not only trying to influence the election by gerrymandering, they're trying to hijack the Electoral College. So they just want to do it by popular vote, this is a Democratic mantra for quite some time. Because they know with their big coastal cities that they can win the popular vote and win elections easier than if they did by the Electoral College. Like, they were so pissed off that Hillary Clinton won the popular vote and yet she still lost the election. They want a few coastal cities to influence the decisions for the rest of the country. There's a reason why the Founding Fathers made the system this way, because they didn't want that to happen. In Virginia is the same way. Northam wants Northern Virginia in the Norfolk area, with its vast majority of immigrants and minorities, to influence the election for the total rest of the state, when the total rest of the state is way different than those two areas. They have different needs and different wants, and they're vastly different people. He wants them to pay all the taxes and support all of the programs that are going into the welfare system into North Virginia and Norfolk, because minorities are statistically more likely to use government welfare. All of the illegal... Do you think illegal immigrants are like massing in then like the Shenandoah Valley, for example? No, they're not. They're massing in North Virginia and in Norfolk, where they have sanctuary cities, as Lee Carter famously wanted Manassas to have. See how all of these things are interconnected? They make total sense. Let's have the areas we control dictate the entire policy for the entire state, and let's have all of these government programs that we're going to shove through people's throats and they can't do anything about it because we control all of the government, to benefit like illegal immigrants and minorities, for example. In turn, they vote for us and we continue our stranglehold. This is why minorities, 80-90% vote for Democrat every single fucking time. See how this all makes sense? It's completely logical in their plan. Many of the laws currently being voted on were proposed years ago and went nowhere due to Republican domination of the Capitol. Transformation now underway did not start merely a few months ago. The groundwork was laid over years, even decades. However, the pace at which these votes are happening is noteworthy. It shows how eager the Democrats are to hit back against the successes of Donald Trump. What is happening in Virginia reveals a desire at the heart of their ideology to fundamentally transform the United States of America. And that's what is happening in Virginia is a microcosm of what is happening in the nation. The divisive votes, anti-family laws, and pacts aiming to reduce the Electoral College to irrelevance are all part of an agenda Democrats want to see implemented on a national scale. Virginia is a window into what will happen to all of America if Democrats have won in 2016. Goes into Obama's legacy. Yep, we got that. So in conclusion, just like this article said, Virginia is fucked. Virginia is going to be fucked. Virginia is going to turn into Maryland, New York, California, all of these failed liberal states that are just years away from completely collapsing because of the policies Democrats are implementing. They have a two-tier structure where there's literally 1% of the population controlling the other 99%. The other 99% do not flourish at all. All of the gains that people are making under Trump are going to be turned around not only by the coronavirus policies, but by the Democratic policies not related to corona. But the two combined are incredibly devastating. That's why President Trump's economic gains are wiped out like in a mere, 1-2 weeks after these corona policies? So 4 years of progress went down the drain in 2 weeks. The Democrats want to do that on a grand scale. They want to reverse all of the progress, any progress that you have whatsoever, because if you have wealth, if you've made progress, if you're successful, you own land, you have a family, you have a house, whatever, that means you're privileged and you're evil, and you must give some of that up in order to give back to the minorities who don't have it. For one reason or another, which again is outside the scope of the video. So I just want to document all of these problems, all of these rights the Democrats are attacking in Virginia, and how they are radically changing this country and state in particular in every way, shape, or form, to the fact that just 20 years ago, if someone, went to jail for 20 years, or went to space for 20 years, or whatever, if they just jumped 20 years, it would be unrecognizable. And you're like, well, yeah, nations change over 20 years, duh. You can take any 20-year period and you can do that. Yes, that's true to an extent, but the radicalization of how much it's changed in 20 years is incredibly unique. And how all the changes are for the bad. If we changed radically good, if things got radically better in 20 years, I wouldn't be complaining, oh, this country's changed so much in 20 years. Yeah, it's for the better. If we made progress in medicine or energy or whatever. But we're not. All of the progress we're making is for the worst. Everything is more difficult now in this state to do. To go to college, to own a car, to own a home, to start a family. Every single thing that is a measure of success or comfort or something that people like is more difficult to do. I don't see how people can't see that. Some Democrats do, and they're like, things are just tougher, whatever, but it's fine. It's like, no, it's really not fine. It's really not fine what you guys are doing to this state. It's completely destructive. And the COVID policies have only accelerated this with, again, people mostly in Northern Virginia and Norfolk who are supporting shutting down everything indefinitely until we get it down to zero, which that is never going to happen. And they support the government taking away all of these rights, are completely unconstitutional, and 99% of it have nothing to do with starting COVID.